red leather, yellow leather.
Find that center.
The
What's good,
Human
everybody?
Torch was denied a bank loan.
I love
Oh,
that.
it's my off day, man.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Sideshow, along with Skeptic and Austin, and this is the Devil's Work podcast. We talk about fucked up horror movies and tell them back to you. But today we're here with a quickie. We are here to talk about Longlegs that just dropped in theaters this past weekend. I think this was the 15th it dropped. 12th.
The
12th it
12th.
dropped.
Yeah.
July 12th, 2024. This just got dropped, and it is directed by Oz Perkins. Whew, this movie is crazy, man. And we all feel differently about this, apparently.
Oof.
I'm withholding a lot right now. I gotta wait till we get into the actual proceedings. So but yeah, this is a little different than our regular episodes. We obviously this
It's our
movie just
jazz
came out.
episodes.
Exactly. So it's a little more free form. It's not like
About the words you don't say.
Yes. It's not as researched and as thorough as our usual episodes, but it's a little more fun in some ways.
Hell yeah. This is a fucking interesting one to do for a quickie, I think, because I think that's the only way we could probably cover this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a better episode if we do it this format than if we were to do a linear one. I mean,
it would have definitely been a take shelter situation, because the whole time I'm watching it, I'm just like, I see you to the main character. I'm just like, God, so much of this movie would have just been me just yabbing and yapping about when I was 6 years old. I can't afford therapy. I'm sorry. I just
yeah, exactly. So this is definitely one that we would probably urge you, before we even get into our semi ratings, the little system that we have for these ones. We have a different rating system for this one, but before we get into those ratings, I would recommend people go and watch this in theaters. The sound design alone made it fucking worth the experience, but as a theater experience itself, I felt this is worthy. I saw it twice in theater.
The scares in this are very minimal. It's all atmosphere that scares you. Which is,
I didn't find it scary like whatsoever. It really didn't have like,
it's just dread. It's like a sense of dread.
It has a weird amount of like, I don't know, some humor is on purpose and some isn't, but it's not, I don't know. To me, it wasn't as well timed as it should have been for some of it.
Yeah.
There's one line in particular that I'll bring up a little later, because we haven't even like really broken into it. But I guess if you want to do like a synopsis before we like really tear into it.
Yeah. Do you want to give them the synopsis, Austin?
Yeah, I can do that. Have you seen Silence of the Lambs? Make it art house.
If you've seen Silence of the Lambs, you've seen 2/3 of this movie.
Yeah. It's Silence of the Lambs, but it has that like late, early, mid 2010s A24 elevated horror element to it, where it's like, ooh,
takes place
it's Silence
90s,
of the Lambs, but I'm saying, but like, in the 2010s, that whole elevated horror where it's like, sure, it's a ghost story, but it's about generational trauma.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just Silence of the Lambs.
Babadooked us.
Yeah, it's Silence of the Lambs meets Babadook, but that's the thing.
Silence
where it's like,
of the Duke.
It's the thing with Perkins that I love so much is he's the only one that got close to Skinnamarink-ing me, which is the only movie in my adult life that actually left me paralyzed in the theater.
Marketing department, though.
Not this movie, but him as a director, where his previous movie, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House on Netflix from 2016. I watched it during lockdown, and I literally slept with the light on.
I think the movie right before this was Gretel and Hansel.
Yeah,
and I want to do an episode on that fucking movie, dude.
He's so good at just atmosphere. Something about the dread that he's able to stir up from me in particular, with just the way things look. Because the thing with him that he does in a lot of his movies, this one too, at certain points, where a shot will hold you're expecting a jump scare. You'll see like the framing of it perfectly with a doorway in the background or a staircase, and you're like, oh, you're staring at it, waiting for something to happen, and it'll hold for like a minute while somebody's talking, and nothing happens. And the thing that he gets me with that is that that's so real. Where I am not a supernatural person, I don't believe in ghosts, but when you get that feeling on the back of your neck, and you ultimately know, like maybe, but I know nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah,
and
this
that's the fear for me.
Thought.
It lingers on that open doorway for like 5 uninterrupted minutes, and then when nothing happens, you're like, that's what scares me.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it. It's a real supernatural horror where nothing ultimately happens, but you get the feeling of like, if a ghost exists, it's probably touching my neck right now.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said nothing happens.
Yeah. And again, the jump scares,
procedural though. It's like that's kind of
it's to me it's part a bunch of things. It like starts as a procedural and then it sort of goes like, but never mind that, and then it becomes something else, and then it goes, but never mind that.
I'm really glad you're both so polar opposite, because I saved this from both of you and didn't tell you my full feelings. I am very in the middle with this one. This isn't my least favorite movie he's made, but this movie
really
had a
wanted
lot
to
of it. Yeah, this movie had a lot of like what it made up with the iconography of our main villain, which we're going to get to. It really punched me in the face with how disappointed I was just in the way that the story went, because it was a very like, you kind of saw everything that was happening within the first 15 minutes. Like it's the dialogue. It really is just,
yeah.
We'll get into it.
That's fair. I mean, but beyond that, I think, like you were saying, the marketing around this, like we were talking about, this movie was marketed fucking genius. Like,
yeah, I think
dude,
it's
so good.
It's being talked about in what I find to be like a weirdly disingenuous way, where people are going like, it's crazy they marketed it without Nicolas Cage. And I'm just like, they didn't show him, but all the marketing was 100% about Nicolas Cage.
I went wanting to see him. Yeah. But they did do this cool thing that I've started watching trailers after the fact. And I like how when they had this big reveal with him where they essentially a big marketing play for like a minute. I sent it in the group chat. I don't know if you guys saw it, where
heartbeat thing.
They put a heartbeat monitor on her in that one scene, that interrogation scene. And that is the first time our actual actress saw him in makeup as the villain. And her normal heartbeat was like 75 beats per minute, and it shot up to like 170 something, and you could hear it in real time. And what they did is they blacked out his face, which I liked a lot. So even if you haven't seen the movie, I like that they did that, because so many trailers will be like, ooh, big spooky man.
I just don't believe that at all. That's just like such marketing.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
it is marketing.
It's marketing.
It's smart.
Yeah, it's
and it doesn't
exactly.
spoil. It doesn't spoil.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just don't at all believe the myth of it, though, of like, he was so scary when I saw him, like I was terrified and all this. And then because honestly, when they showed him, I saw someone on Reddit go, they should have just hired Mickey Rourke and saved themselves a fortune on makeup.
No, it was Iron Man 2 out the ass. It was
like he didn't look, I don't know. It like all this stuff about it being the scariest movie of the year, like it was 0% scary to me.
Definitely not the scariest, but
I get what you're saying though.
Yeah, it has the iconography.
It's got like, it's a heavy feeling movie. Like the atmosphere of the movie really feel like man, this feels like the doom metal of movies, like the stoner metal of movies. Like this is fucking.
I guess that explains why I don't like it.
Yeah,
it's very like like Gothic Americana, like that Chelsea Wolfe vibe.
Yeah.
It has that type of like Midwestern dread over top of it, like that Ethel Cain kind of like Bible Belt fear in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, okay. Well, all that to say, go and check this out for yourself. I mean, this is definitely a divisive one, and you're right. You're not the first person to say that they don't like this movie, Chad. Like, this is definitely something that like people are talking about right now. It's definitely the biggest movie on everyone's lips. Which means you should probably go watch it. Just go make that decision for yourself.
I had to Google Chelsea Wolfe because I don't know who that is.
Oh, really?
Did you know she's in a band called Mrs. Piss?
No, but that makes me happy. That's right up her vibe. Imagine Alanis Morissette if she was in a doom metal band.
Yeah,
that seems accurate from the
She's
2 photos
sick,
I've now
dude.
seen of her.
I really like her music. Her music is fucking sick.
I think it's called The Abyss. It's like an album that I just adore by her.
But that's also leads into this because like I think you're right. Her music like definitely has that vibe about it too. It has that like
it's
heaviness, that tone about it.
Yeah, you know the Sound of Metal, the music that they make as a couple in the Sound of Metal, it has that type of vibe.
Yeah.
Where it's like, noisy. It's a metal band, but it's like post avant-garde type of
very avant-garde for sure. Yeah, it's art house. Silence of the Lambs is the best way to like generalize this. But I also think I also feel like it has its own identity. I do feel
I do not.
Well, hold on. Let's fucking get into it then. Jesus, trying to fucking
can I get into it right now?
Hold on.
Can I break the middle ground on that?
Yeah.
I don't usually laugh this hard, but
I couldn't tell. I thought there was reverb, and that was me laughing. You really don't, and that was very nice.
Christ. Anyway, if you go check this out. We're trying to drop this the week.
It's worth a watch. It was interesting. I think it's my aging eyes, but like it was definitely a little hard for me to look at. Like genuinely, it gave me a little bit of a headache because it does have this like 16 millimeter kind of aesthetic, and it kind of plays with the aspect ratio. And I think also maybe just like literally not overall the whole building, the theater, but like actually the room we were in might have just been like, I don't know, not optimal. So but it was kind of dark and yeah.
I don't know if Chad was in the call for this before we hit record, but I was telling Joey before we even get into the movie, can I explain the nightmare of my experience seeing this movie just from a theater aspect?
That we will get into it right after this, so go watch this movie.
So shout out Bollywood. Love Bollywood. It's a phenomenal, genre of film with many classics.
Easy.
But sometimes it's frustrating. So I get to this movie, the 7 p. Calm down. I get to the 7 p.m. showing at 6:23, and I'm like, good, plenty of time. I was supposed to go with somebody. They couldn't show up, so I'm like, I want my money back. So I'm getting a refund. I get into the theater, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna grab my refund. Still have 30 minutes. I can sit down, let this edible kick in. I took a fat edible, so it's kicking in, and I'm like, I don't want to be in a long line.
15 milligrams.
It was 2.5, 40. But but
got both
I'm in this. I opened the door. A sold out theater was in line to get refunds, and they all individually had to get refunds. So essentially, what happened is there's this movie called Telugu or something. It's like TELEGU.
Oh, I've been seeing.
Apparently, the showing got canceled, and they were furious because it's not showing at a lot of places around here, and people were talking like they drove like an hour plus just to see this. Entire theater had to get their tickets refunded, and they were calling me up and they're like, do you want to buy tickets or get a refund? And I'm like, I need a refund, but for this movie. And they're like, we have to wait in the line. And I'm like, can I see the movie and then get the refund? And like the 16-year-old kind of looked at me like, no, idiot. And I'm like, I know. I just figured I'd ask. So I had to sit in line until 7:15, and the movie started at 7. And then I get into the theater and it was already starting. And then I sit down. This guy, I saw him come in when I was in the line. He had like one of those military, like fat boy water bottles, like this big on his sling across his shoulder. And I'm like, and then he had a bag clearly full of food from his home. And I'm like, I really hope he's not in my theater. He's directly in front of me. He proceeds to pull out a like an ounce-size Ziploc bag full of like homemade popcorn. I don't know. Proceeds to take out a Tupperware container full of like cheese powder, I'm assuming. Pours it in there during the movie, and then takes a plastic bag and goes.
Oh my god, dude! This is
rubbing
such a quiet movie too.
The person next to him has 3 people with them, and they're just like, "Hey, yo, that's crazy. Hey, what's going on right now? What did he do that for?"
The person behind me.
The person behind me is yapping. The person 2 rows in front of me was on their phone the entire time with the brightness up to fuck you level. It was. And then the edible was kicking in, and I'm like, I'm too high to leave, but I'm also too sober to not be.
I gotta lock in.
Yeah, it was so frustrating, but the movie I liked, so it was easy. And the other thing is, since I came in late, we're gonna get into it right now, but there's a jump scare right out the gate, like 5 minutes in. As I was walking up the
Oh, yeah.
stairs to my seat, I turned to the aisle. So I saw my peripheral, the screen, and then I saw a face jarring with a piano blast. And I jumped standing up in front of the entire theater. And then everybody clearly was laughing at me. And it broke my soul. And I'm like, I just want to be high and watch this movie.
Well, yeah, no,
psychic damage.
But let's talk about it. That's probably that was the one I mentioned to you guys before we even went in. That was the scare that got me initially.
I knew immediately
because that was not nothing could fucking prepare you for that fucker.
Man, I was just I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. I was like, oh cool, that's like I am wondering what his face looks like, but it didn't like scare me. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, it startled me because they didn't. Also, I mean, fucking NDA, I guess. but I did see an advanced screening of this, so I wonder if like the mixing was different in the theater, because that fucker got me, dude, and it did get me. I saw it 2 more times in theaters when it came out, and I mean that shit. It still got me, and I knew what the fuck was coming, and I was just like, wow, that's fucking terrifying. It's really good. I think it does a great job of just setting the tone, because again, you have this like southern fucking was that band like Heart, kind of like that
T-Rex.
T-Rex, T-Rex, like this like heavy
Mark
guitar
Bolan.
come in. Yeah.
Was that the music playing when he was driving and we saw that long shot of the car?
I want to say
no, it wasn't really T-Rex, but it was T-Rex-esque.
Yeah,
it was very like the score was made to kind of sound like it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because the opening, like, it shows lyrics from the T-Rex song Bang a Gong Get It On. It says you're slim and you're weak. Yeah, you're slim and you're weak. You got the teeth of the Hydra upon you. You're dirty sweet and you're my girl. Which are just like total nonsense lyrics. That song just doesn't fucking mean anything.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I love T-Rex. I actually really like T-Rex. It's just stuff to say while they're playing guitar. Like, that's just strictly
jazz, baby.
You know,
kinda.
Talking about the vibe of this movie, you know what this kind of reminded me of in hindsight, thinking about it now? Do you remember The Lovely Bones? This is what I wanted out of that movie.
Yeah.
That movie was not that Peter Jackson movie. Yeah. It was
I don't think I ever saw it, but I remember, like I think I read the book or something like that.
Yeah.
I think there was a book. Yeah.
It was based on a book, and the book was like really popular when we were in high school. And
yeah, that's what it was.
I had a girlfriend that really liked the book at the time, and we went to see the movie, and I'm like, ooh, movie, I want to see it. And I'm pretty sure Peter Jackson made it, so I was sold on that. And Mark Wahlberg aside, you know, it was a decent movie, but it was like, so this is like what I wanted out of that, kind of.
I get that.
It has that same type of tone, and
I'll say this has more plot than The Lovely Bones did.
It does, and a lot less icicle deaths.
I'll say that it's an actual thing. Like The Lovely Bones, I would be like, don't waste your time. This, I'm like, you might like it more than me, so give it a shot.
Well, yeah, like that's the thing. I do want to talk about like the atmosphere of it, because like all of that, like that hard rock kind of like 70s hard rock type of aesthetic. What's up?
Well, I mean, I feel like it's maybe kind of early to talk about it, but I will just say this, I guess, that very much did influence like Perkins' style of writing. I read a little, like some interviews.
Oh yeah.
A couple things he had to say about it. But yeah, I'll just say that for now.
Yeah, no, and I mean like that he takes a bunch of influences, and then even in the lair we see like posters of, I think it's like LaVey,
Lou Reed,
and it's like Lou Reed, like there's all kinds of different like people of the time, like musicians,
and then a few just centerfolds, which I thought was like kind of weird in a way, because he's almost seems like asexual.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking.
You know, like it kind of just seemed out of place with everything else.
I think it's really one of those things that just to complete the vibe, the aesthetic.
It's that, and I think with him, essentially, we haven't gotten to it yet, but him being like this porcelain doll maker, like
Mhm.
just like the human form in general,
Yeah,
and him being so
that's
like
true. That's
gender
yeah.
fluidly neutral.
You're
I
absolutely
guess
right.
so, because I did think he was an old lady at first at the beginning of the
Yeah,
movie.
Yeah,
When he first popped up and all you can see is like the jaw, and he is
yeah, yeah.
we find out he
His
started his
his
killing spree in the
his
60s,
fucking
and this is
his line of dialogue though is so good. Like, it looks like I wore my long legs today. It'd be a shame if I like, or if something happened or something like that. It'd be a shame if I, and then like it just cuts to the fucking title card.
yeah,
I
and
was like, oh hell yeah.
that scene is hilarious because I watched that scene and then I watched like 15 more minutes of the movie and I was like, I swear to God, because I had an idea of where I thought the movie was going to go and it would
Mhm,
piss me off if it did. And I'll get into that later, but it
mhm.
didn't go that way. Thankfully, it wasn't that
oh, so you didn't
cliche.
actually miss any of the movie, because our movie had like at least like 35 minutes of trailers before it, and they were almost all trailers that I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
Yeah,
what
oh,
I
I
I,
want
was
to
I
see
was
telling
that
him.
talking to
movie.
Yeah,
Joey. I thought I
yeah,
missed a lot, but I apparently only missed her like drawing in the house and then she
yeah, and
walked
just
outside
walking
and then
out.
that's when I walked in
She
halfway
sees
through
Oh,
that
she sees
conversation
the
with
oh,
her.
doll
okay.
in the car, but that like it literally is like
Yeah.
a far away zoom in, kind of like from It Follows, which
Hmm.
yeah, that made sense for the whole thing. But yeah, it's just a like a long
And
kind of like
but
zoom
the
into.
thing is that I saw him watch that whole scene, watch 15 minutes more of the movie, and then we see him again at one point, and then
Mhm.
I'm seeing him on screen. And this was like how we talked about, and I saw the TV glow with Fred Durst, where I'm like, man, I can't wait to see when Nick Cage is gonna pop up.
Yeah, yeah, just
And
didn't
like I
recognize
didn't
him.
even
Yeah,
factor in like it wasn't until he had
that's
that
funny.
break in the car when he was screaming,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah,
oh shit, that's him. There it is. There's his voice.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
was doing
Well,
the Nick Cage
I
screaming
it's yeah,
style.
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That like that part reminded me of his character in Mandy.
Yeah,
Like
Mandy,
that
and then
very much, and even
That
the vibe of this movie
like
reminded
Face
me of
Off.
Man. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the movie also like reminded
Mm-hmm.
me of Mandy. It's like very rooted in like that hard rock aesthetic and hard rock like feel,
Yeah.
but then also
when
with
we
these like fantastical elements inside of it.
when we left the theater, Amanda was like, Mandy was so much better.
It doesn't
Just
feel like a Rob
unprompted.
Zombie movie, but it feels like what Rob Zombie likes and is inspired by.
That's funny. Yeah, that's
A,
fair. I
a,
mean, that's fair.
a Rob Zombie joint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there it also
I
reminded
don't
me
think I would
of
ever smoke a Rob Zombie joint. I'd be like, there's fentanyl in this shit.
That's the white in the white zombie.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
But
fentanyl and embalming fluid and some of fucking Sherry Moon's pubic hair. I'm good, player. I'm good. I know what you're about.
so no, yeah, I also wanted to bring up that this reminded me of two movies in particular. The Fallen, or I think it's called just Fallen, the Denzel Washington one that I really want to cover on the show at one point.
Oh, I've heard a lot about that, but
Yeah,
I don't think
John
I've ever
Goodman.
seen it.
I've
But
never
I've
heard of
Dude,
heard
that.
that's
John
like
Goodman is the shit, dude. I
I've heard
love
that's
that
like
movie.
crazy good and also just like
It
a weird ass movie. Like it's
Both
just
of those
a
things are absolutely true. Yeah, and again, this is what that movie reminded me of. This movie, like this, reminded me of a more serious tone than that one. No, that one actually gets really fucking dark. Like it goes some pretty dark
Is
places. I really love that movie.
was it during that time of like the late 90s where like Seven popped off and we had
Mhm.
like the Bone Collector and stuff
Yep.
like that?
Yeah, I want to
Taken.
say,
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I don't want to give too much about that away about that movie. I wanted people to go watch
Hmm.
that too. But there's a lot of connective tissue between that one and this one. I will say that is a reason why I felt so like, oh, that's very similar to Fallen. But I wanted to bring up that and the when the interrogation scene finally happens, what we were talking about, where Micah actually sees him for the first time, that reminded me of the scene in Exorcist 3 where Brad Dourif is talking to
See,
the detective.
God, but
yes,
the
correct.
Exorcist 3 scene is so much better.
Do you want to know
Poetic
what I
for
thought of
sure, for
initially?
sure.
I
Ah,
literally in my head when I saw him at that table and you
Mhm.
see her walk in, I in the back of my head I just heard, "I'm the Joker, baby." Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was
he
just
Yeah,
the
it was very
Dark
Heath
Knight.
Ledger. Yeah, Heath
Yeah.
Ledger for sure. Yeah.
he was very much like in that vein,
Mhm.
like I think I mean are we free to just go into it at this point?
Oh, we have been. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately it ends up being, they present that Agent Lee Harker, Micah's character, Micah Monroe,
Mhm.
that she has these like psychic abilities and all of these things. I wish I knew exactly what she said when she's doing the tests, because that obviously like factors into the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
You
she
know?
says words like door, mom, father,
Yeah,
mother,
and
father, and
door is important, obviously. Mother's important. When she says father, it's an upside down triangle,
yeah,
which
I caught that too. That was
which
awesome.
factors in. But the man, when she comes in, she says camera, which is the name of the first family,
Mm-hmm.
table, which I don't remember how that
Oh, you're
factors
totally
in.
right. Shit. Wow, you made me
Uh,
love this
um,
movie even fucking more.
leg. I think she says leg, which
I
ends.
no, but long is a repeating word that happens in this movie. I
No,
noticed
she
that.
doesn't say long, but I think she says leg, and then I can't remember the fourth one. I can remember that earlier, but I obviously forgot. I should have
Yeah.
wrote it
It's
down.
it's funny that you said that the upside down triangle part too, because my thing going into it was, are they gonna do the dumb fucking cliche where tragic thing happens, she becomes FBI agent, she hunts down serial killer, and then it's Luke, I am your father. That's what I was hoping didn't happen. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of hinted at, it wasn't the case. She was just a victim that
Yeah.
didn't die. But you saying that kind of bleeds into like, maybe he just assaulted her mother. She never knew her father, lived alone. He came back
Well,
and was like,
no,
I want my
because
daughter.
he very clearly went and like well, essentially, yeah, abducted his
Tried to
family
abduct
one
her.
day.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he very
I just wanted
clearly
to
Yeah.
make
did
sure
that.
because I was like really hoping that wasn't the case because that's just so
No, no.
lame. And I know
He lived
Perkins
in
is
the
better than that.
house. He lived in the
It's
Yeah.
house,
Yeah.
but that
yeah.
was it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I gotta say though, like I just saw everything coming from miles and miles away,
Yes.
and the suspension of disbelief is pretty hard when they're like, so they murder families whose daughters have a birthday on the 14th, and neither of them go, oh,
Eh,
my birthday is on the
No.
14th. Oh,
Yeah.
my daughter's birthday is
That
on the 14th.
it was
yeah.
worse than that. It was the
As
scene. I'm sorry, but they do. This is where I'm agreeing with Chad right here. This pissed me off because like 20 minutes in, they establish the MO, like you're saying, and then in the very next scene, they end the scene with like, yeah, when the 14th come, that be the bad day. And then the very next scene, I think they end it with the scene, her chief detective, the FBI kind of
Yeah.
like boss
Who
looks
I
at her and he's
love.
like,
He
to
was a
me,
good
the best
character.
actor in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, he was
yeah,
really
yeah.
good.
And then he looks at her
Really
and he's
fucking
like,
good.
I got a daughter and a wife, and you're coming to her birthday party. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, so you're all gonna die. And then
Yeah.
and then they want to have this like great reveal at the end with the
Mhm.
murder. And I'm like, this is a good scene, but man, you kind of told me it was gonna happen an hour and 15 minutes ago. And that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
frustrating
yeah.
because the whole time I'm just like, man, he's just gonna
I
die.
will
So like I
concede.
love him, but
I will absolutely concede. It took me more than one viewing to like this movie.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Okay. I appreciate
That's
that you gave us that much.
yeah, no, absolutely. Because I was kind of like underwhelmed, like you said, the first time I had kind of gone in, and then like when I watched it again, I kind of saw these like not hints and like yeah, you're right. You could kind of read the ending once you know what's going on, but it was more about like allowing myself to sort of really live in the dread that is this movie, like live in
and
how like
that's where I was
heavy it
sold.
is, you know?
That's what
Yeah,
sold
yeah,
me on it. Like
exactly.
the jump scare at the beginning, and then literally not even 10 minutes later, we get that gun blast to the head from her partner when
God,
they
that
go to
was
that house.
so good,
That
dude.
scared the shit
Oh,
out of me too.
yeah,
I
yeah,
jumped
yeah.
I
in the
knew
That was
that
the
was
stairway.
other one.
coming.
Yeah.
I
That was super clear. As soon as he was like, "Oh, you're dumb. We're not calling
Yeah,
it." I was
it's
like, bullet in the head. Bullet in
it's
the head.
something, and that's where it frustrates me
But it
because
was just the
where
quickness of it,
yeah,
though.
as
Come
soon
on,
as I
man.
No,
saw it coming,
I just knew too. It was too obvious. I was
I
like,
don't
he's
know,
immediately
man.
gonna get shot in the head, and then she's gonna run in, and it just, you know.
it was clear that something was going to happen, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the jarring nature of seeing that in a theater. Like I don't know if it's the timing, if it's the tone, but like even though I saw a lot of the story like ABC, I'm like, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. The twist was kind of cool. I didn't completely guess it and I liked it, but like
Yeah,
when
it's
bad
clever
shit was
writing.
about to happen, I saw it coming, but the way that they not enunciated, but the way they executed
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
actual shock of it, it got me when it got me.
Yeah.
They were jump scares that felt warranted and they felt earned, and I don't say that often because I don't like
that's
them
the
for the
thing.
most part.
Like that's the thing. The jump scares in this movie, I think, were earned. They were really well timed.
To me, the biggest jump scare in this movie was the one with the doll, and that shit was not earned, and that shit was signposted from a mile away as
With
well.
the eyes. With the
The
eyes.
doll,
Oh yeah,
the doll that
eyes.
clearly had eyes capable of opening that was
Yeah,
centered in
that
the frame.
I didn't even take that as a
for
jump
sure.
scare. Yeah,
I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah, no, but I'm not. That's not the one I'm talking about. That's like the only one that I was like, whatever. But like every other fucking thing, the knock at the door, the fucking everything, like everything else was like, I'm like, this doesn't feel cheap to me. It feels kind of more earned than anything.
and I kind of feel like where most movies use the tension to, it kind of feels like it was flipped, where normally like a movie that, like a Conjuring type of movie that relies heavily on that piano slam jump scare, you kind of they don't do the foreplay enough with the tension building, and then they just want to like jar you with like a like in the face, like Smiling Friends, where it's like, dude, I'm just gonna punch you if you do that again. Like that's what a lot of those movies feel like. I like Oz. I like
Uh-oh.
Okay, I thought that was me that disconnected.
No.
got me. But for this movie, it
You
felt
might want
flipped
to
where
redo that point.
You were like, I like Perkins, and then you cut out. So we can retake that.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like Perkins, but like, I don't know, what was the last thing I said? I'm thrown off now. I'm sorry.
Just that you had appreciated the style of it.
Yeah, it felt like where a Conjuring would typically like skip the foreplay on the tension building. This movie's all tension, and then you get that jump scare, but that's not the release that you typically get from the jump scare.
Yeah,
it felt like, for me, like the scene of her on the phone talking to her mother on that payphone, and it pulls out to that wide shot, and you see the staircase lit with green, and it's all dark. It's like you're just waiting. You're looking around the corners of the screen, and you're like, fuck, I don't see any shadows, and then nothing happens. That's what scares me about Perkins. He's really good at like showing you nothing but making you feel the fear of that jump scare.
I think that what helps with that is the cinematography, is the framing of everything. It's like the way that he frames everything. It's almost like he's training your eyes. Look over
exactly
here, look over here, look down the hall, keep your
like when she's in her house, and they show it 3 separate scenes. It's not just the first scene when she's on the phone with her mom and you see that back kitchen. It's not the second scene where you see it again, but it's darker. But it's that third scene, and then you get like the jump scare kind of you see Cage's character walk through the house. That's not the scary part. The scary part is you knew and felt something was there. You didn't see anything. You didn't get shocked, but then you just calmly saw him walk by, and that's like the dread that gets me. Is like, I knew the whole time, and now you're just calmly showing me, and that's so much more terrifying, because that means he's there, but he's so confident that he doesn't have to scare you. He's just like, fuck you, fear me. And I'm like, I do. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, daddy.
Like you're saying with the panning, like the way that Perkins moves the camera, this is a thought that I had watching it, and why I was so creeped out with all of his movies, where he'll do this cool thing where normally you'll kind of like zoom in on a still shot, or you'll pull back on a still shot. He has a lot of these scenes where like when they were walking before we got that really shitty doll jump scare you were talking about, but that lead up into the barn, we get these pull shots where the camera's moving with our characters, and then it pulls back, and then it zooms back when it's still further, and then it'll pivot in that same shot as they're walking up. And it reminds me a lot of how horror movies don't necessarily scare me because I'm not in control, but I cannot play horror video games. I can't play The Evil Within. I love the game, can't play it. It scares shit out of me. The feeling of like Resident Evil 7 good. Or like, I still have PT on my PS4, can't play it.
I thought you were going to say I still have PTSD.
Yeah.
I still have PTSD from PT. I did. But like, Perkins has that feeling of, it feels like I'm holding my thumb on the joystick with his camera moves, and it feels very like it feels like a video game in the sense of like a third person survival horror that I don't get from watching movies, but I get from the fear of playing the game and knowing that if I don't move, I'm gonna die, and if I move, I'm gonna die,
Mhm.
and it's
if
just
if I
that
can
tension.
hijack your metaphor, I would
Yes.
agree that it feels like a video game, but it feels like the part of the video game where you can't skip over the dialogue that's going way too slowly and you're forced to walk. You know, like to me,
I
the
didn't
worst
think that
thing
it
in a
was
video
too
game is when
slow
you're
though.
forced to walk. It just like 2/3 of the cast were weirdos that had a hard time talking. And so, especially when you have a climactic scene of two weirdos who can barely get a fucking sentence out of their mouth, I was just like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, can we just
You mean
I'm glad
Micah's
you.
character?
yeah, her who
Yes.
Well, I will say
I
that
feel like there is like a reason for why she's so wooden and weird, but
I
it's
thought that she
hard to
was on the
watch.
spectrum.
Yeah. See, that's
Like
the vibe
her
I
being on
got.
the
Like,
spectrum was
Well,
the read that I got from
well,
that.
like the birthday party
it
Mhm.
seems
stuff.
Well, even meeting the daughter.
it seems like that, but what's truly going on? So we find out that she is a victim who lived, and it seems like maybe what was happening was the priest who died at the camera house was
Mm.
like the old person he would use to get the dolls into houses. Because when he went up to her house, like that was terrible. That was such a horrible attempt at
Like a cell.
like getting this
He
doll
didn't
into the
sell
house
that pen.
Yeah.
no one thought like, have you seen the SNL skit where Steve Buscemi is like a member of the coaching staff and they're like, yeah, so we called this conference to let you guys know Coach Steve is not a pedophile. We actually had the FBI and the local cops on it, and all these specialists keep coming out and they're like, as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, we got to bring this fucker to justice. But no, it turns out he is not a pedophile. Like as
funny.
soon as you saw this guy, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, this dude makes dolls and murders little girls." Like,
Yeah, no, yeah.
this man must be stopped. You know, so
No,
like he needed someone to do the sale for
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah, of
Because
course.
when he went up, he didn't do a good job. And then there's the whole confrontation of him saying, "Are you going to let me murder your daughter, or are you going to
Yeah.
become part of it?" The dialogue, so much of the dialogue of this movie was so fucking painful when they
it's
went, her she used to be a nurse. Now her job is killing families.
yeah, it was very stilted, and I felt that, and I was trying to like cope
Oh,
and be like, maybe it's like a Yorgos thing where they're stilting the dialogue in a weird way because that's the cadence that they're going for. But I agree that a lot of it was very like just like they wanted you to be like, oh my God. But then in reality, it's like, yeah. Cause like when she laughs, like when earlier in the film
When she's on the
when
phone.
Micah's character was like, I haven't been saying my prayers. They don't
Yeah,
really
yeah,
help.
yeah, yeah.
And then the mom just starts belting out laughing manically. I'm like, that's weird. You're weird, but that's a little too weird for a hoarder.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with you.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fair,
Oh,
yeah.
but what I was saying is, so the explanation ends up being that there's been a doll of her all this time, and that
Mhm.
this man has lived in her house her entire life, essentially, because the deal is that he's gonna live in their basement, and she's gonna take part in his murders, and that's gonna, save her and her daughter from hell. And
Yeah.
so it turns out that she's not actually psychic, and that him and the devil have just been manipulating her this whole time, and him and the devil went through all of this so that she could stop them.
They said something that the doll made her forget.
They they
They say that dialogue.
they say that the doll made her forget, but remember, the dolls are how he controls everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I took it as like I took it as like he needed to have those victims in that certain path to make that algorithm, as they put it, to get that like kind of sacrificial algorithm going. And then on that last kill, he needed to be essentially the last sacrifice. His body needed to, so he could ascend to that plane of hell or whatever and like commit the full sin. So and
but
he kept saying like, I am everywhere now. So
but
that evil is
his
kind of spread.
but that wasn't really his goal. They constantly are talking about the Book of Revelation. So my
Mm.
interpretation is that his goal is to commit these murders for Satan to give Satan the power he needs to awaken the beast of Revelation. Because in the book of Revelation, I stood upon the sea and looked out, or I stood upon the sand and looked out into the sea, is the beginning of the book of Revelation. And that's somebody seeing this happen, and it's describing this horrific thing happening. But when the mother says it at the end, she's saying it like, this is what we're working for, is for the world to end. But it just ends up like, to me, it fell so flat as soon as they started going, "Ooh, it's Satan." I was like, "Oh, so nothing matters."
Yeah, that last scene with the
no
family, I felt that when the dad was just like, shut up and sit down, like he's like totally taken over. And then like they don't show the murder, they show it off screen and you hear like the stabbing noises, and I'm like, this could have been, I don't know. I agree in that last section, the last maybe like 15 minutes.
But basically the explanation is that these little orbs have like a piece of Longlegs' soul and a piece of Satan in them, and that's how he like influences the families. And we see like the doll get like of the other families being like the veil being lifted up. And as soon as we see the family, the dad starts like, you can tell he's being like psychically assaulted.
Yeah,
like he starts like touching his head and stuff, and you're like, oh, it like
it's like Harry touching his scar when the Horcrux is activated. I like literally had that thought. I'm like, oh, it's just Horcruxes.
I will also say that when he initially, like you were saying, it was a bad sell when he initially meets the family when they were younger.
He needs a mouthpiece.
He but what he does though is that if you see his hands, he starts like doing a spell. Like he starts immediately doing a spell with his hands, and then he starts going into like the weird singing that he was doing in Mandy. But
I don't mind magic in a movie, but it's just so
that's
hard.
What this is based around, though.
It needs to be like, it needs to be like Chucky, like kooky Chucky logic, or like just like legit like Serpent in the Rainbow logic.
There's not enough logic behind the magic to be able to actually say, because that's like sort of an interesting idea, but ultimately he has like 2 minutes of screen time and then bashes his head into pieces. So he ends up just being like a nothing character, and the whole
thing is kind of the central like focal point of the investigation, which is the whole basis of the movie.
He is, but then like I'm glad you mentioned the investigation, because the investigation meant nothing, because in the end her psychic powers led her to find out that she had a picture of him in her mom's house. And then
even the captain even says like, oh, the case was cold up until when you got here, and then it starts flowing like hot lava.
Yeah. And but it's like, we find out that because that doll of her existed this whole time, just like Kiernan Shipka, just like Carrie Ann, that she's been influenced by him this whole time. So I don't know, man. It just ends up being, what was his plan? Because he had her bust him and then killed himself, and then the mom freed her by destroying the doll, and then she showed up and defeated Satan. And I read an interview with Oz Perkins, and he straight up said, yeah, they won at the end. It's over. That's the end of the evil.
See,
the worst thing Satan can ever make you do is kill your mom. So there's not even any reason for Satan to like have a plan after this, because anything he would do, he already did the worst thing possible to her.
That's
and
annoying.
I'm just like, that's fucking lazy.
I was trying to figure out like maybe there was a cynical point to the end. Like they really held on the fact that her bullets ran out right before she could destroy that last doll. And I'm like, oh, is this like insinuating something about the girl that's going to grow up? Like, is this going to continue? That orb is still in that doll's head. But then you say that, and I'm like, well, what the?
There is a person who was cast as adult Ruby, and they are in the credits of the movie. So it's just a scene that didn't make it into the movie that they cut.
Oh,
so there was something with adult Ruby, but it didn't make it. And
well, I bet it was something along the lines of when they go to visit Carrie Ann in the hospital. I bet it was something along those lines. There was another victim that grew up,
possibly, but
and they were just like, yeah, we just need to chop this off.
I do have to say, I did love the length. Lately in the last like year or two, with like every the girth was mighty thick, but the length was perfectly short. because like the last couple of years of like movies needing to be like 2 hours and 45 minutes is getting fucking taxing for me.
You don't want long legs
Look,
Endgame.
I
That's good.
no, but like listen, Kinds of Kindness so far is my favorite movie of the year.
There you go.
That justified an almost 3 hour runtime, but
Yeah.
God, am I tired of every movie needing to be 3 hours? Like you don't have
Yeah.
to be Marvel, you don't have
It
to be
is yeah,
Scorsese.
it is a
This was
brisk kind of
perfect.
like, yeah, like you're in, you're out. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think it like ever bored me at any time. Like it really does.
Yeah.
Then I don't think it overstays its welcome either, because I think it does a good job of like introducing you to the villain. You know what the stakes are immediately. You know that he's able to just fucking influence people and kill them. That's fucking
If
terrifying.
if
So
anything, I wish there was a little more, and I wish it went in a different
you
direction,
mean
and
more of
like
him?
yeah, like that for sure. And I like what I thought was going to happen going into it. Like as soon as I realized that she was psychic and all of those things,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, so he's committing these murders using some sort of psychic powers, some sort of remote way that he's like making these fathers annihilate their families. Um, so you know, to the climax is going to be a psychic battle between these two, that they're going to go back and forth playing this cat and mouse game, and then ultimately it's just going to turn into like, whatever that entails, like maybe some sort of like the Cell-esque
Yeah.
sequence kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And for it to just turn instead to like, man, it's the devil. When they literally said, well, there's no physical evidence connecting this guy to anything, but there is the fact that he has all these like satanic ramblings in his bags and stuff. And then she goes, well, being a Satanist isn't illegal here in the United States of America. I was just
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, they were definitely trying to hit on that whole like early 90s satanic panic type of
Yeah,
era,
which
and I
which
get
is
it.
exactly why I liked the movie though.
it
I
And I
like
would
them
did.
playing with that.
to me it would they just didn't do enough with it. Like some shadows of Baphomet and like, ooh, what about Revelation? It's
I
just
fucked with
lazy.
those shadows though, because the
It
the only two that you can see like immediately, those are the only two that I thought were in there. They're happening all throughout the beginning of this movie.
oh no, all
It's
throughout the whole
crazy.
movie. All
Yeah,
throughout the
it's
whole
fucking
movie.
cool.
But
I like how that happens.
it just ultimately, like, it was so surface level. They were just like Satan, Book of Revelation,
Mhm.
and I was just like,
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Yeah,
and
nailed the atmosphere. I agree that I could have used a little more meat on the bone, but I
yeah, for
loved the
sure.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
I love the way it looked,
I
felt,
When we
I
do
genuinely creeped
Fallen,
me
you're
out.
gonna get the movie that I think you want. I'm
I have
pretty
Yeah.
sure.
I have to read to you guys. So when I watched the movie, I was like, I don't know, I want to like it, but I don't feel like there's as much there as like I want there to be. So I just like looked up some random shit, and I found this interview with Oz Perkins, and this guy says, what was the original idea that started it all? And what was the moment that made you think, wow, this is a whole movie? And he goes, what a great question. The original intention was to make a movie that more people could access, that would please a greater swath of the general audience. I thought the way to
True.
do that would be to sort of cue Silence of the Lambs and refresh people's memory of that and their memory of the experience of that, and then snuggle up next to one of the great things of all time as a means of getting into something else, sort of going through the door of that, but then opening up into a different landscape. What was the aha moment? And then basically he says, when he says it very long way, but when she shot the agent with a shotgun twice, and he was like, oh, I understand how in it she is, how invested she is. You want to like all of your characters that you write. And she's like, I'm really going to get the job done. I'm really going to shoot this FBI person. And I'm just, oh, and then the next question, they said, what's the name Longlegs mean? How'd you come up with it? And he says, I don't know if it has meaning or not. It doesn't have meaning. I like words, and it's a good word. It sounds good. It sounds sort of scary, but also sort of fun. It sounds pure. It sounds like something that maybe Robert Plant would have sung in a Led Zeppelin song, which, like, just like the T-Rex songs, that the T-Rex lyrics at the beginning, those just mean nothing. Those are just words to say.
Mhm.
And that's basically his approach to writing this. All I can think is like, this dude is a fucking Nepo baby hack. That's how I feel. Like in
That's
all
harsh.
honesty,
I think that's a little
everything I
harsh.
read
Did
is like
you
Anthony Perkins, Anthony Perkins.
did you see Paul Schrader's? Everyone's giving Paul Schrader shit on his Facebook. Paul Schrader's official like Facebook page. He was going
No.
off about the movie Longlegs. He kind of he. It's funny that you said that because he kind of worded that similarly about how he like hung out. He's like good guy, I like him a lot, but it was pretty much what you said. I can't quote it verbatim right now, and I'm not going to pull
That's
up my
I
phone.
don't know.
But it,
I think it does a good job of like again, it has an atmosphere of its own. It stews in that atmosphere. It's like a very fucking dread covered blanket. And I really think that it does what it needs to do. Like you said, it's accessible. It very much is.
mhm.
Out of all, like for
it's
sure, is very accessible.
is I don't know. I just feel
It's
like
funny.
it didn't like Men, for instance, wasn't just like, hey, isn't this scary? They were like, fuck, man, we're calling back to this like ancient sonnet depicting
Mm,
this fucking
Yeah.
mythological story and like all the
sure,
this is
yeah,
just like Satan.
Well, like, yeah,
yeah.
It
it's funny
literally
that
ended with him kissing, blowing a kiss and saying "Hail Satan." I was
it's
like,
funny
"Wow,
that you
fuck me,
say
right?"
that interview because I remember telling Joey in the group chat when I saw it, I was like, this feels like what I don't like about it, but what I can respect about it is this feels like a director's way of being like, I've made movies that I made for me, and this is just it very much just felt like this is accessibility. I think I said
Mhm.
verbatim, this feels like the most like accessible film to like give a crowd and be like, hey, give me more money, studio. Look, people are
Yeah, I
watching
mean
the movie, they're liking it. It feels
it
like
hits
a very good
everything.
starter movie.
Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
Seven. It's calling back to all those movies, so it's
It's,
easy
Yeah.
to
I mean,
feel like nostalgic.
he literally admitted that he just basically bit Silence of the Lambs.
Well, she reminds me
Like
of Jodie Foster for sure.
I mean, except Jodie Foster like had agency and like did stuff and wasn't just being manipulated the whole time. And I just can't understand. He manipulated her into solving the murder so that she could ultimately foil them. Because in that same interview, they ask him, so what happens at the end? And he's like, oh, they're free. They beat the devil because like the devil made her kill her mom. And that's the worst thing the devil could ever do to
Are
her.
you he
Hmm.
said that? He the director that made the movie said that?
Yes.
Are you
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Uh,
why do you have to
In
say words sometimes? Man,
in the same interview I was just reading from, he flat out said that yeah, they win at the end. And then
that's
literally the interviewer says, but Ruby's doll didn't get destroyed.
yeah.
And his response verbatim, let me scroll down because I'm not going to remember it. It's so intensely word. So it doesn't matter that Ruby's doll has not been broken. Perkins, not my problem. I like that. I feel like that puts my mind at ease. Perkins, it should. It's contained, it's done, it's over.
And I mean that's fine too, though. It's fine. Just
It's fine.
But then
It's the
why do all of these murders so that ultimately she could make the devil could make this girl kill her mom? Like that's like a low
I
stakes
don't know
ass
if that was
devil.
like the intended like
I
action that he wanted out of that. I think it was like just
I
happenstance
mean,
that happened.
he controlled her mother, and him and the devil were literally controlling her the entire movie. He showed up and gave her the cipher, and on top of that, there was a doll of her that allowed him to control her. So the reason she's acting so like wooden and stilted is because she's basically a human marionette. Because her and Kieran Shipka are the only living girls that have these dolls. So she's just walking around doing his bidding, not knowing. And then the mother destroys her doll, which frees her for you see the smoke come out of her head, which is the devil's like power over her. And then all of a sudden she has agency again. So my question is just why was that your plan? When in the end that just leads to her killing the mother and ending the whole cycle of violence. Like
listening
Yeah.
to you explain that is like I understand how like very people with very wrong or very like brain dead political takes feel when you actually show them factual information and they just go, "Nuh-uh." That's how I feel right now. I'm like, I'm like, everything you're saying makes sense, and I just refuse
I
to
mean, it's
acknowledge
fine.
it
It's
because
fine. It's valid.
goddamn.
But I'm telling you, ultimately, like I didn't think it was a bad time. I like the atmosphere of the
No,
movie,
no,
and
not a bad time
sometimes
at all.
that's all I fucking need.
It's an interesting movie, but unfortunately, like to me, it falls apart under analysis. And
I
as
mean, it
soon
does.
as
It's also one of those. It's not that deep moments, though.
It
Too. I
felt
didn't
like
need to take anything.
kind of
I didn't need to like
but
learn
also
anything from this movie.
but when this movie is marketed as the most stellar Nick Cage performance of all time, you've never
Mhm.
seen Nick Cage like this, you've never seen anyone
Yeah, I
perform like
didn't
this,
think that
this
was
is the
true.
most terrifying movie of the decade, all this shit. And then I watched it and I was like, I wasn't scared for one frame. For a while I was like, this is kind of interesting. I obviously see the Silence of the Lambs DNA.
Mhm.
But then, like, for him just to say, like, so what was your original idea? Well, people like Silence of the Lambs, so I figured I'd rip that off. Like, that's basically what he said in that interview. I'm gonna snuggle up to one of the greatest things of all time in your memory. Like, okay, bud.
so Longlegs is the sugar baby, and Silence of the Lambs is the sugar daddy.
I was
Uh,
like, what?
Osgood
It's
Perkins is a hack. I just want to be on record saying
Jesus.
that.
I don't know, man. I think Osgood done did good, man.
Obviously, you'll have to make me watch more of his movies, but it'll be interesting to see. I can't imagine Gretel and Hansel being any good, so I was really surprised when you said you liked it so
Dude,
much.
it's one of my
it's
favorites.
he's
Like aesthetically, like that's a fucking movie that nails that shit.
something that me and Joey I've noticed agree upon that me and Chad and Joey kind of disagree upon is if a movie has the vibes. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter if the story's doo
I
doo or
don't
if there
give a
isn't any.
shit. I
I
don't
love the
give a shit.
vibes, man, and that's why I love Giallo. And this
Yeah,
movie has
that's
that like
exactly my point. Those movies are fucking garbage.
it's
That's the
style over
reason.
substance,
It's
and
literally
that's
the
what
point
Osgood
of it.
Perkins is.
Yeah,
All of his movies, there's really barely any story, and if there
exactly. I
is,
don't need to
it's
dissect
shocking.
anything. I don't need to
To
But
learn anything from
it's
it. I just need a good
wallpaper. It's
time.
yeah,
Exactly.
to me, it's always gonna be about story, and
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
just how I feel about everything. And I understand that that's like a preference, so I'm not saying that that's like has to be true, but to me,
Mm.
the narrative aspect is like you could have an hour of like stellar shots, but like if it's not telling a story, I'm not interested whatsoever.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I
You
just don't
know,
need I don't
and
need that. Like I think like for me, that's why I like abstract art so much, is because like it doesn't always need to have a point to it.
and
You know?
that's fair, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different things that different people are into.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, the story always reigns supreme. Same with video games, which cracks me up because I've had people tell me that like no video game has a good story, and I'm just like, oh man,
Yeah,
BioShock?
that's
you don't
wrong.
play good games.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
BioShock, so
What?
good.
Yep. Yep.
BioShock is
Exactly.
very good.
It's literally like the one game that I wish I could go back in time just to play again for the first
It's
For
time
the
because it's
first
it's
time,
never the
yeah.
same.
it's funny because I don't know if you know this, but Ken Levine, the guy who created BioShock, he
Uh
also
huh.
created System Shock.
System Shock, yeah.
So System Shock 2 is an attempt at making System Shock better, and then BioShock is an attempt at
Making System
recapturing
Shock.
System
Oh,
Shock, and
Yeah.
then BioShock Infinite is an explanation of why he continuously makes the same video game over and over and
Yeah,
over and
he's making a
over.
new
literally.
game too.
And
Also,
he is making a new
We're
game called Judas, which
we're
yeah,
not
is
here to talk about that
no,
though.
nope, hold on, which is basically just BioShock again.
yeah,
And to me that works because there's so
yeah.
much narrative going on and so many connective things. But here
You saved it.
I
You
just feel
saved
like I
congrats.
just feel, yeah, see, I told you there's a point.
But real
Here
quick,
I just feel like it falls apart on the back end, and I was so much more interested when it was a story about people who maybe have these like supernatural abilities. But as
Mm.
soon as it just went, fuck it, it's the devil, it really fell apart for me. And ultimately, for it to be like the culmination of Nick Cage's performances, like there are a lot of moments that I saw people like claim were jokes, and I were like, I don't think they were really even supposed to be jokes. But when he like did the thing with his eyes in
yeah,
the
Yeah.
hardware store, and then the girl just went, I have no fucking idea what that is.
Yeah.
That's me towards the entire movie.
We did in my theater when they revealed that he was in the house the whole time, because that theater was so god awful. The person in the front row that was talking the whole time, it was dead silent for like the last 20 minutes before that. And then I hear, "Oh my God, he was in the house the whole time. That's crazy." And I'm like,
that's all funny. As soon as they showed me that door, as soon as we saw that door, I was like, he lives in her basement.
yeah.
Yeah, like I think we mentioned it like on the In a Violent Nature episode. This is like more like the pricey popcorn. This is like that's what
and
it feels like to
it's
me.
funny that you bring that up, because I don't know if I brought it up on the episode, but the director, I think I found out after we recorded, was even saying some of the same stuff that Perkins was kind of saying in that interview, where he was getting asked at a screening when it premiered, like, so the last 20 minutes, or like in general, what was that ending? And he's like, well, we just kind of like watched slashers and then just did the opposite. And they're like, so there was no meaning behind it. He's like, yeah, we just did what people probably wouldn't expect. Well, is there any other reason deeper than that? Just kind of to piss people off.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of the same thing here, where he's like, I don't know, fucking bad people are bad, devil's bad, devil bad.
Devil bad. No?
Yeah, it's also just sort of like, you don't have to explain what twisted this man into becoming this way, when you just go like, oh, well, the devil's the most evil thing that ever existed. So if the devil's involved, then like you get it. Like there was no, like, I expected there to be like some sort of backstory and some meaning and some like what is Longlegs and all these
that's
things.
the thing. I kind of like the lack of that was made me enjoy it. I'm just like, all right, cool. We're just in the world now that he's in. Like, cool, fuck it, whatever. Like, I'm in. It allowed me to like suspend my disbelief.
But you can't tell me that, knowing that he doesn't care, like that he didn't even put an ounce of thought into it. Like, you can't tell me that doesn't bother you, that he was just like, I don't know, man, sounds like a Led Zeppelin lyric.
I would have liked.
I mean, again, I don't. That doesn't like matter that much to me. Again,
I don't know. That's crazy to me.
Again,
I would have liked like an in between
for the sake of art. I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
Like an in between. So like, I don't need to know how he became like a devil worshiper, how he made this pact, but like to be like this pristine Michelangelo porcelain doll maker, I would like some like, what's his background? How does he have this talent? Like something about him other than he's a serial killer.
It was weird, like the coroner.
Yeah, I guess he was a coroner. I don't know.
Yeah, he was a coroner who was like admiring the fucking work.
Yeah, like why? Like
he wanted to fuck
where'd
that
you get
doll?
this talent? Like where did this come from? Something on him, but like
he made me the most uncomfortable.
For sure.
He creeped me out more than Longlegs.
Yeah.
He definitely creeped me out more than Longlegs.
Longlegs didn't give me the ick.
Sorry. You said the ick. Okay. This is probably like
a reach.
Do you have Imagine Theaters by you? I think it's a Michigan thing. Like Imagine. So we got Imagine Theaters. Paul Glantz is the man. He's the CEO of Imagine Theaters. And like before MJR or AMC 20, they have their little pre-show preview of like, hey, this is the theater you're in. Buy Coca-Cola and eat salty popcorn. Look at these polar bears drinking cola. Buy our membership program. All of that, yeah.
Snort some fentanyl.
No, but every time you go to Imagine Theater, there's like 3 different versions of it. And it's just this big white man with gray hair and a suit smiling. And he has like no upper lip. And his name's Paul Glantz. And he's the CEO of Imagine. And he goes like, hi, I'm Paul Glantz. Welcome. Thank you for coming to Imagine Theater. And he just looks like an asshole. And I only say that because I knew someone that worked at a bank years ago. I was seeing them shortly, and they were like, yeah, you like movies? Do you know Paul Glantz? And I'm like, the Imagine guy. And they're like, yeah, he's our biggest customer, and he's the biggest shitbag ever. He just calls all day yelling at us. And I'm like, we on that Paul Glantz vibe. But point being, every time our lead would talk, cool. Yeah, there was a point to this. Every time our lead would talk, she kind of like never moved her upper lip, and she'd look like this constantly. And she's like, I am so brooding, and I'm probably on the spectrum, but maybe it's the demon core inside this doll we don't know about yet. I don't know. But she would never move her upper lip, and she'd never emote. And I'm like, yo, it's Paul Glantz. And it sucks because the one time I thought about Paul Glantz, I was at an MJR. But that's not the point. I just had to share that
It's such
because
fucking niche references.
if you've been to an Imagine theater, you're so sick of seeing that guy's dumb fucking face. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Paul, but like you're not the star of the you're not the star of the movie theater. Just I'm so tired of looking at your face.
Yeah.
Please stop.
So anyway, let's get into the
Anyways.
ratings of this. We rate a little differently on the quickie segments for those who don't know. And usually on the show we rate out of 6. But on the Icky Quickies, we just do horns up or horns down. And I can guarantee I know where this is fucking going, but Chad, kick this one off.
Down.
Austin.
This movie made Chad feel like the demon core was activated, and the demon core in this movie reminded me
Man,
of
it would have been so much more interesting if they tied it into the demon core. That would have been a cool idea.
Do you know that episode of SpongeBob with Man Ray where they have like the orb of confusion and they're like, ooh, like that's every time I saw that demon core, I was like, oh shit, it's the orb of confusion. I give it an up.
Or horns down.
I give it an up, but I can see completely like the lack of substance. If you want a story, this isn't going to be for you. If you want to just be creeped out and you want to see creepy shit happening and you want to see Nicolas Cage be a psycho for 10 minutes, it's horns up. I enjoyed it, but I totally see the lack of substance there.
I have to actually ask for my floor time back because I didn't mean to just like cede all my time on the floor because this is my time to say what I think without being interrupted. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like ultimately it ends up being the kind of film where once everything is laid bare and you're like, okay, this guy wanted to commit murders so that Satan would like become powerful. So he really shouldn't have done any of the shit that he actually did because it ultimately stopped him from doing the murders. It's just so highly illogical in so many ways, and it's just like, why go through making these dolls and putting this thing in there and talking to the people at the door and all this stuff? If it's just that this orb has to be somewhere nearby, why doesn't he just like bury the orb somewhere? Like, I don't know. It just ends up being like this movie needed to have like 10 more drafts and maybe it could have been something a lot better, but it just reeks of people are like, oh yeah, your dad was in Psycho, so I guess we'll do whatever you say, Oz. Horns down. He's a hack.
Wow, Jesus Christ.
Well, real quick. Real quick. Don't seem so disappointed, my guy.
Yeah.
I know. I interrupt. That's my thing. That's my quality perk. That's and now I lost my train of thought, so it was for nothing.
You piece of shit.
I lost my train of thought. Fuck Oz Perkins. He's making me mad right now because chat's making valid points and it's throwing me off my game.
He doesn't
Go
like
on.
me.
I'm done. I'm done yapping.
Maybe it is a case of style over substance, but I fucking love the style. The cinematography in this is the same reason why I loved Gretel and Hansel so much. That movie does atmosphere like no one's fucking business, dude. It is beautifully done. The world in it, the world that we're like introduced to is so stylistic, and again, that's all I need sometimes. I was in a rut recently of kind of going to the movies and sort of being disappointed with the ones that I was watching in theaters, kind of being like, right, well, that's just a lot, that's dumb or whatever. This I kind of felt disappointed. I really got excited about this movie in theaters, and like I found myself getting lost in the world that this was just kind of telling me to live in. Like, it's just like, all right, let's just sit in this little true crime fucked up little nightmare case. I love the cinematography. I love the performances. I thought they were fantastic. I really enjoyed all of the like imagery, the iconography that they were doing, the blasphemous kind of stuff like that. Growing up, in the Catholic and Christian faiths, not anymore. But growing up in those faiths and like seeing the blasphemous imagery is always fun for me. So that's why I'm saying I don't ever mind that it's just the devil, because I'm like, yeah, it's fine. that's the equivalent to Nazis in a horror movie. You said the bad guy is the devil, and it's like, okay, everyone's on board. That's what makes it accessible, you know. And so that for me, I don't mind. I can again, this is just a popcorn movie. Turn on, have a great fucking time for an hour and 40 minutes. Horns up, go see
Yeah.
it.
You know what's
This felt
funny?
like what's up?
He was in Nope. Oz Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
Who was he?
It says he is Finn Bachman. I don't know what character
Huh.
that is.
Yeah, I remember seeing that credit earlier, and I didn't actually bother to.
Yeah, I
Well,
just knew him from
because
Legally Blonde.
yes, he is in that too. Because Jordan Peele was in the special thanks to this movie.
Huh.
Oh wow, trip out. That tracks too. And like that sort of like
Oh, he's the
aesthetic
dude. He's
about
the
it.
dude directing the movie that they tell them they're going to use a CGI horse for instead.
Oh, okay, at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got you. That's
Yeah.
funny.
The last thing I want to lead off on is thinking about everything that was said. This movie kind of feels like the criticism that I was hearing when the Black Phone came out with what was it, Ethan Hawke,
Mhm.
where like it's this really
I
good
never saw
new
that
type
actually.
of iconic killer, and it has like really good visuals, this striking character design, the mask
Mhm.
was really cool. But then like the story was just very convoluted and kind of goofy. And
Mhm.
I feel like I really liked the iconography here. It has potential to be like a killer that is like remembered, and they really could do something with it if they wanted to flesh it out for a sequel, or maybe a prequel would be better. But like,
Mhm.
yeah, ultimately I agree with Joey that this movie just looks incredible. But
Mhm.
like I also see Chad's point. It's not a lot of flesh
Mhm.
to the to
And
the
that's
to the
fine,
fruit.
baby. That's totally
I
fine.
think I think they need to upgrade the non-IMAX theaters around me because I think honestly that was a factor, but like genuinely it gave me kind of a headache. And I think it was just that they aren't set up to like show a movie that's not like standard as fuck. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
Yeah.
that I don't think they lit it up enough to like compensate for the aesthetic he went for.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But I don't think that has anything to do with the movie. That's just literally the screen I saw it on.
Speaking of which, I
Hmm.
would love to see this in 35 millimeter. This would look
Same.
fucking sick on film. This would look great on film. So yeah, I mean, go check it out.
Oh,
What happened?
to end on a note that we can all come together on to laugh at. I should do this for every movie. I found a really terrible Reddit theory.
Oh man,
Yes.
you used to.
Well, I should find them for us to end on, and then
That's
this one it's kind of
fair.
there's some tension back and forth, so we can end on a shared laugh. I was wondering why his name, the movie's name, was Longlegs too. And at the end of the movie, when we see Lee, this is obviously like way in the middle of like a thread, you know.
Yeah.
When we see Lee enter Carter's house, as soon as the door opens, we see Carter and his wife standing directly in frame, and his wife's legs were really fucking long. Like the only time in the entire movie when I thought, damn, those are some long legs. And we never actually see the wife get killed. So
Oh my
what if
god,
Cavell
dude.
prophesied that the wife of Carter, the only one in the movie with long legs, would
Oh
take
my
on the role
god.
of long legs once he got
That's so
caught,
good.
seeming to know that the doll for their kid would be his final kill to complete his work
Oh my
and pass the
god.
torch onto Carter's wife, the real long legs.
Dude, it's so
Why?
wordy. That's wild.
And he ends it with wild theory, but she really was the only person in the entire movie with long
it's
legs, and they were only revealed in the last scene.
it's
Oh
funny
my
too because when they show her in the
god.
beginning of the movie, she was like beautiful, but there was something about her that was uncanny. And I in my own head was like, is she AI generated? Like there was something off about her, and I'm like, she could do some fuck shit. Like I wouldn't put it past her.
That's
That was
hilarious.
fantastic, man. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
That was
Yeah.
awesome. All right, well, we'll be back. We just dropped an episode this week. I'm probably gonna do this the week that we drop our Serpent in the Rainbow episode. So
Oh shit.
go and check that out. That was a lot of fucking fun. We had Nuisance One on the podcast. Had a great time.
The boy.
Yep, that was a lot of fucking fun. That's a girthy ass episode for you, so it should hold you over for a little bit. But if you're looking at this right now, you're probably on our YouTube channel, and if you're not, you're hearing about this on our audio platforms. So go over to our YouTube channel, and you can see our beautiful fucking faces. This is going to be the very first episode that we ever drop as a video podcast. So go to the YouTube channel, sub, and you can see that right now as it's happening. And then we hope to do more in the future as they come up. But yeah, go and go subscribe to the channel. We have Instagram at the Devil's Work Podcast. Correct me.
Instagram is the Devil's Work Pod.
Fuck. Okay. It was one of the.
It's okay. It's the outlier.
God damn it.
We've come too far to change.
Exactly. So the Devil's Work Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have the Devil's Work Podcast. You can find us on there. Go and email us with any of your recommendations or how you felt about Longlegs. You can email us at the Devil's Work Podcast at gmail.com. And any other housekeeping?
Know that we love you, even if you like hack directors.
Yeah, and somebody make a deep fried meme of the Longlegs cover, but put SpongeBob when he went to prom with Pearl on it. Please do that
with the long legs.
Yeah, him going.
And somebody let Nick Cage know that it's not okay to steal roles from Mickey Rourke.
Oh my god.
He doesn't have much time left on this earth, and you're really gonna fucking do him dirty like that.
Let the boy breathe. All right, guys.